You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WYPC.
WCYTV
Here on the Daily Signal.
Well, it was one of those kind of days where everything and nothing at all mattered. Welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast, whether you're joining us via the radio syndication network, TV, live streams on YouTube or X. You can join the conversation over there, and we do keep track of those comments, no matter how out of hand they get. And then, of course, the podcasts a little bit later. Good to be with you. A lot of news to dig into. First of all, the inflation report for March fell to an annual rate of 2.4%. Now, that's lower than the expected 2.5%. It's the first time since March of 21 that the core consumer price index inflation has dropped below 3%. Month-over-month consumer prices decreased by 0.1%. That's the first such decline since the onset of the COVID-19 era. Now, 0.1% is small, but it is a decrease. If anything, thank God in heaven it's not an increase for the moment on some products. Now that there are tariffs in effect on China, although again, we'll certainly talk about China here in a second, some prices are going to go up, but for local products, things not skyrocketing in expense, thank God. I'm very pleased to see that. Now, the Trump and administration and China situation is growing a bit more interesting. As you might recall from yesterday, after the Liberation Day tariff plan was not going particularly hot on the market, according to Trump, he said people were getting a little bit yippy, get a little bit nervous. And Trump, of course, seeing the bond markets as well as a couple other things, according to inside sources at the White House via Politico and the Wall Street Journal, made it clear that the Trump administration thought, you know what, maybe we'll just take a sledgehammer to China, which, good call, and then basically start organizing better deals with the rest of the world, a more free trade zone, kind of dropping the tariffs down. And China has responded. China's responded in two ways. Number one, they're raising the tariff even more, which is a dangerous thing to do because the Chinese economy cannot handle that. We'll talk about that in a second. The Trump team had a cabinet meeting today, which, again, to remind you the size of the federal government, the table itself to seat all of the federal cabinet members at is the size of like 26 standard dining room tables. Now, is it actually 26 dining room tables? No, I made that up. But if you're watching on the live stream, I want you to see, we're going to talk about what Trump says, obviously. Look at the size of this table, man. This thing's enormous.
Mr. President, China
You can't see the table in the clip. Go figure.
The number of American films that can be shown there. What's your reaction to them now targeting cultural exports from the United States?
I think I've heard of worse things.
That just shows to go, your producer, Nick. I had that clip from the cabinet meeting all ready to go. The dining room table seats at least 50 people. Now, that's like medieval kingdom banquet hall style. The federal government's massive. But to the reporter's question, she said, hey, Trump, you know, China has decided it's going to slam at the United States by not allowing like certain American movies to be shown in China anymore. And Trump responds again, I've heard of worse things.
Mr. President, China retaliated today by reducing the number of American films that can be shown there. What's your reaction to them now targeting cultural exports from the United States?
I think I've heard of worse things.
And that's the truth, because China has very little leverage. And what Hollywood has always been afraid of is a lot of Chinese industry not supporting American films. This includes companies like Disney, who were so terrified of China that they removed Finn, the black actor in the Star Wars sequel films in the main cast, from their movie posters. So, you know, I'm afraid to tell you guys this. The conservative administration doesn't really care what commies think about Hollywood. Nah, not exactly something the major donors are concerned about either. The markets, however, they did have some concerns, not necessarily about China, although that did play into it. The markets did some roller coastering. The Dow, the S&P, and the NASDAQ did a good amount of mostly down, but a little bit up from that down today. Still finishing off below where the Trump administration ended with the markets yesterday. And then before the tariffs set in, And I've seen a lot of hot takes online just about, oh, this is a huge loss for the Trump administration. See, clearly this means that the Trump administration did a pump and dump, little market manipulation yesterday. Or see, this is all the proof of the... Almost all of the takes I've seen on the market today, after the surge yesterday, have been awful from almost all sides of the spectrum. So I am going to give you the 100% lowdown accurate truth of the market right now. Allow me to explain. The market is volatile and will remain volatile, meaning people are uncertain. There's a little bit of buying and selling based on different messages coming from Howard Lutnick, who they need to lock in a kitchen cabinet and have him stop talking. Thank God Peter Navarro hasn't been on camera for a couple of days. And they need to let Scott Bessent and Marco Rubio get to work. Because what's happening right now is the market really doesn't know what to believe. They don't know if these tariffs are going to come back or they're not. They don't really like the 10% tariff standard. The European Union is flirting with China, which is not even popular in the EU. We'll talk about that in a minute. But there's also good news out of the EU because the EU might start buying gasoline from the United States, which is something that Biden tried very hard to ban. And then you throw the United Arab Emirates in there, and there's a lot of uncertainty. And this volatility will continue until two things happen in succession. One of these things won't cut it. You have to have both. Number one, and most importantly, the Trump administration, through guys like Scott Bessent, need to secure trade deals. And they need to be the 0-for-0 countries coming to negotiate style trade deals that the Trump administration has been bragging about over the last couple of days. Now, funnily enough, now that the tariffs have been paused, there's a little less leverage for the Trump administration to do the negotiations with. Because now the rest of the world knows that Trump can kind of be pushed into backing off of the tariffs. The other hand is that now that other countries know there might actually be an off-ramp to remove the tariffs, they might be more willing to secure a deal with the United States. And this needs to happen. Free market trade agreements where neither country is taking advantage of the other, no one has tariffs anywhere, and as little currency manipulation, or you want to talk about trade deficits, as little of that is happening as possible with our allies. And then with China, they get the middle finger because we shouldn't be propping up a slave-ridden communist regime. And that's the first thing that needs to happen in order for the markets to heal and to skyrocket. And if that does occur, the markets will skyrocket. Number two, though, you need Congress not to suck. That's a tall order. Congress needs to pass the big, beautiful budget bill and the tax cuts. If Congress cements the Trump tax cuts into law from the first administration and passes the big, beautiful budget, that's a lot of spending, but still, that's baked into the cake, then the markets are going to say, okay, now everything that's up in the air is now on the ground. I now know how to run my business for the next couple of years. That means I can choose how to invest. The idea that there's just a bunch of hedge fund managers that are like gambling is not how the stock market works. I don't know what movie you saw from 1980s where like you saw people doing lines of coke and then like pulling the slot machine on the stock market. There is a little of that goes on, but the idea that the vast majority of the stock market is like some Mother Grimm goose nonsense bedtime story goofiness. That's what Bernie Sanders tells the rally fans to try to get them angry at Wall Street. In order to see how U.S. business built on U.S. energy and U.S. manufacturing is going to advance in the next couple of years, they need some certainty. And that does, in fact, play into small businesses. Now, the good news is Congress, at least the House of Representatives, did, in fact, pass the government pseudo-budget, the spending plan for fiscal year 2025 today. They passed it 216 to 214. Now, Indiana Representative Victoria Spartz, who has no idea what she's doing. By the way, I know several on Victoria Spartz staff. They're very nice people. Representative Spartz has no idea what she's doing. She should not be in Congress. She's an embarrassment to the Hoosier State. She's not on any committees. She's not doing anything worthwhile. I know I'm going to get texts about this. Don't care. She's not doing anything for nobody. Thomas Massey's got some principles. I disagree with his resolute stance on, voting against everything, but he's a libertarian to the core and he believes that Victoria Spartz is just wildly flailing about. And fantastic. The offside of why Republicans were able to escape this narrow majority and pass this particular House bill was all due to one thing and one thing specifically, and that is that 2 Democrats had recently passed away. We'll talk about that in a second and send those radio folks over to commercial. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. All right, boys, girls, and squirrels. Their reaction to the House budget passing from Hakeem Jeffries was really gross because he focused on the only reason Republicans could get this through is because there were dead Democrats, which is a really, really disgusting way to view members of Congress. But the awkward love child of Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama had to talk about it anyway. Here you go.
Passing this initial budget resolution should have been a slam dunk for Republicans. They had to pull the bill down off the floor last night and barely struggled to pass it today. We had 2 tragic deaths in the House Democratic Caucus. Had those deaths not occurred last month, Republicans could not have even passed the bill today. So it's going to be very difficult for them because once the committee process starts, they can no longer pretend as if they're not intending to cut Medicaid and nutritional assistance and hurt veterans all across the country.
All right, so the bunch of muley mouth, again, whinings like, man, I wish that our representatives weren't dead. Nothing of substance on the bill at all. Just using people in your caucus as like pawns or like political props in that way is really disgusting. I don't seem to remember him sharing the same kind of sentiments about the voting weight of dead representatives when they were Republicans. Like my friend, who is now gone on to glory, Representative Jackie Walorski of Indiana. None of those just discuss. He is so pathetic. Then the Republicans also got it together today and passed the SAVE Act. 4 Democrats did join the Republicans in voting for the SAVE election integrity measure. According to Jacob Adams over at the Daily Signal, these 4 House Democrats are Representative Jared Golden of Maine. Keep an eye on Jared Golden. This is not the first time he's broken with Democrats, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure, in the future. Marie Glusenkamp Perez of Washington State, Henry Cuellar of Texas, and Ed Case of Hawaii. Very interesting stuff there. Now, what does this bill do? According to the text of the bill, because you are legally allowed to read in the United States, that is allowed here. The SAVE Act requires individuals to provide documentary proof of U.S. citizenship when registering to vote. It prohibits people who aren't citizens and don't provide ID. It prohibits those individuals from voting. That's it. That's all the bill does. Also requires states to take that seriously. And the left lost their ever-loving mind and just started making things up. Here's Sunny Hostin from The View. I know, saying making things up and Sunny Hostin from The View, that's kind of redundant. But Sunny Hostin decided to say, oh, this really hurts black women for some reason.
People that don't have cars, don't have driver's licenses. So it's sort of a vestige of, I think, post-slavery laws where black people had to prove their right to vote. And oftentimes they couldn't vote because they couldn't pass some crazy test or they didn't have the appropriate ID. It also affects women that are married. Maybe your passport reflects something that's different on your birth certificate or on your driver's license. So really the bottom line is...
By the way, that last part, Hillary Clinton, as well as some representative that I've never heard of before, Rebecca Balint from Vermont, passed the same lie along. Oh, women who get married name changes, they're not going to be able to vote. That's not a thing. First of all, that's not stated in the bill whatsoever. There are processes in place in all 50 states and federal territories for women who change their name before or after marriage. Any of those cases, divorce and the name change, your social security number doesn't change. There's entire processes set up. The bill changes none of this. They're lying because there's no reason that you should be against proving who you are to vote. And they're just going to stick on it as long as they can. And that is not the only thing that has gripped the Democratic Party and the other two parties at the moment. We're going to talk about that up next in a second. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. A little bit of a note here. I'm just as a bit of a clarifying for those who are joining the show for the first time. When we start the show, for those over on the radio, you'll know that the show doesn't go live until 7:06 Eastern. This is because of FCC regulations. And there's a certain number of ads and federal government PSAs that have to be played on air. And so for those on the live stream side of things, we start a little countdown timer, which allows us to get the stream running and stable, make sure that we're not getting any kind of attack, because there are individuals out there who love to do some swatting and some DDoSing and other kinds of cyber attacks. And it allows us to let those who want to tune into the show to kind of hop in the live stream chat and cause some trouble. So just a little clarification. I know it's not time for mail time, but thought we'd answer that right off the bat. Speaking of right off the bat, it is in fact an open ball game on Capitol Hill. Did you like that? Like a little segue, producer Nick? That was good, eh? Yeah. So in this particular time in the country, we have a two-party system, but more like a 2.5-party system. We've got a 2.5-party system. Now, the libertarians will tell you it's the Republicans, the Democrats, and the libertarians. No. Libertarians are just Republicans that are mad about it. So you've got Republicans, and then you got Democrats. Now, the Democrats are not a serious party in the country right now at all. Congressional Democrat approval is at an all-time, and I mean an all-time since we have measured the stat, all-time low favorability rating. They are unserious people in every way, shape, and form. Which is one of the reasons why you see representatives like, as our reporter Jacob Adams pointed out, Jared Golden of Maine flaking out on Democrats to vote alongside Republicans on a couple of bills recently. Right now you have two different Republican parties, and the lines are not always cemented in the same place. Right now you have a group of populists in the Republican Party, and then you have kind of the aging Bushian Republicans. So the George Bush era Republicans believed in a lot of free market practices, but some subsidies to corporate entities. And also some subsidies to U.S. allies. Subsidies in all different kinds of ways and forms and fashion. On the other side of the Republican Party, you have populists. And populists believe in subsidies instead of one way to kind of American industries that may or may not really be worth propping up because of failure to innovate and be productive. The American auto industry in the 50s and 60s, for example, and kind of some 90s labor Democrat policies, and then some isolationism that comes in as well. Like, we shouldn't be trading with people and we should make everything here. Both of those political parties are currently having a spirited discussion, one might say, over the future of the Republican Party. And I'm going to let you in on a little bit of a secret. Both of those groups are equally right and equally wrong. They need each other. They do, because culturally, both the Bushian Republicans, although it took them a long time to get there, and the populists, although it took a long time for them to get there, understand that the left is bat bleep insane. And that the left, economically and socially, believes in, as we're going to cover in a second, some really wild stuff still, and they're going to clutch those pearls all the way to the grave. And so the Republican Party has to figure out where it is currently going policy-wise. And it matters because Trump's not always going to be around to kind of glue everyone together and through an alternative political style carry people through. We found out so far no one can really be Trump except Trump. We've tried. We've trotted out the candidates who've had a lot of passion and a lot of charisma, and we've got them out there. But as the left has learned, no one else can be Barack Obama except Barack. The right is currently learning no one else can be Trump but Trump. And J.D. Vance is more on the populist side of things, but he's a very, very good, entirely different political entity who we'll end up talking about a little bit later. The Republican polity as a whole right now is really what the entire country, at least as far as the independent voter base and the moderate voter base, is deciding on which side they're on. The stability and the maturity of the Bushian Republican base and the understanding of how the market works is very appealing. But the energy and the passion and the unwillingness to fold or to, the word I'm looking for here, the unwillingness to compromise on moral values is something that a lot of Americans also sympathize with. But those two parties don't often agree. So that's why you're seeing this disagreement. Right now, you're really seeing two completely different factions rest over this entire infrastructure of the right, which has grown bigger because Trump ran a big tent campaign. What about the Democrats, though? Wait, aren't they the other side of the party? You know, aren't they the other side of the American politics here? Well, yeah. Less and less by the day, because when you have major left-wing pundits and anchors getting on TV and saying things like, where are we going to grow wood? How does one even do that? It looks really bad.
But there's other thing. I watched on the evening news last night, one of the other networks, and I watched the issue of lumber. Now, you see, we get so much of our lumber, our 2x4s, from Canada. Where we get it from? Canada. We get our newsprint from up there for newspapers. The fact is we get it. What are we going to do? Have more lumber made in the United States now? What is our plan now? Oh, we're not going to import wood, so we're going to make more wood? We're going to create more wood? Is that it? I don't.
Yeah. These things called trees, they are in fact renewable, and deregulating the logging industry means you can take parts of federal land and grow new trees. And the idea is you want to start growing those new trees early because it takes a minute. So by the time that you need more of the lumber, you have more trees ready to go. I know, agriculture, kind of a new technology, only been around about 5,000 or 6,000 years, but, you know, still rather popular with the kids, I think, you know, worth keeping an eye on. Then you have the LGBTQ plus 2IA nonsense. Later on in the show, Reeve has some horrible clips that I'm going to be forced to watch. And this is making the socialists really, really mad because it won't let go of the party, to the point where Anderson Cooper, a gay man, and Bernie Sanders, a socialist, openly, were lectured by this non-binary whatever at a town hall last night that 15 people watched. So for the rest of the country, this is one of the most hilarious moments on TV.
Paul, we're back with Senator Bernie Sanders. I want to introduce Grace Thomas. She's a local civil rights attorney. She's a Democrat. Grace?
They, them pronouns, actually. Thank you.
Oh.
Good evening, Senator Sanders. Polling and turnout data indicate that men of all racial demographics are turning away from the Democratic Party. But of course...
Okay, two great things there. So first of all, it's they, them pronouns, actually. It's they, them. It's very they, themable. You know, it's very, very important. Very they, them. And then she asks a question. So first of all, Bernie Sanders' face is the definition of curdled milk. It's truly, truly fantastic. Hold on, I'm going to see if I can freeze this.
Paul, we're back with Senator.
So while she's asking the question, you can see Bernie Sanders' face just milk. Just curdled milk. Because this goober, he wants his little socialist, revolution. And here is this twit asking a very important question. Hey, nobody's voting for Democrats anymore. Do you know why that is? She asked that to Bernie Sanders. The woman who just lectured her allies for not using the correct gender pronouns that she made up is asking Bernie Sanders why the Democrats can't get new voters. I think I've got a bit of an idea as to why that is. We're going to be back to the radio crew in a second with some awful tweets with Jerry Lopez. We'll catch you in a second. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. My dearest live stream crew, I regret to inform you that those aren't the only Democrat contenders. Bernie Sanders and AOC and yelling about lumber like Hakeem Jeffries and Chris Matthews do. There are more, like Tim Walz. You remember Tim Walz, the masculine man's man from Minnesota, who understood that real manly men, they do chorus kicks and wear, tampons in the bathroom. Yeah, manly men. Yeah, well, here's Tim Walz getting booed by veterans because Tim Walz is complicit in stolen valor where he lied about the extent of his military service. Guess what? Veterans don't really care for that. Here's Tim Walz in his own state capital being booed by actual, legitimate, not lying about their military service record veterans.
Welcome to the Capitol. It's great that you're here. Sir, you're welcome to come. Let me finish. Let me finish.
By the way, I really do enjoy the play it off. It's a very feminine line that men use. Whoa, there's a lot of passion in here. You're getting openly booed. By the way, the manly way to respond to that is either A, ignore it, or B, address it directly. Not, whoa, there's a lot of passion around here. Whoa, this man hitting on my wife is really passionate. You goofy cuck. Fantastic. And then you have the clinging to federal bureaucracy kind of the left. And again, you and I both know what these particular individuals always seem to look just a little more well-fed than necessary from the federal government. Scott Jennings, however, over on CNN, a national treasure, he points out that maybe they're just a little more irrelevant than they think, and, well, all hell breaks loose.
You cannot just go and say, I like it, it's mine now. It doesn't work that way. Well, that is what they're trying to do. And in this new world order, yeah, absolutely. When they're looking at Greenland and say, I like it, I want to take it for mine, that is a very colonizing.
I have never ever said we're going to go to Greenland and, quote, colonize it or steal it.
You're not a member of government, so you're irrelevant at that point.
Okay, so the former government worker says to Scott Jennings, you are not a government worker, you are irrelevant.
And I'm talking about the president of the United States doing that.
You got fired from your job.
You can agitate.
Scott, if you want to engage in personal insults,
I don't, but you
what
do.
you lack in a legitimate point, you make up for in personal input.
I don't, you
personal
do.
Insults.
So I really do enjoy the, oh, you're irrelevant. You're not a member of the government. Well, you got fired from the government, so you're irrelevant too. It's like, oh, how could you use personal insults? How? Oh, the pearls. Clutch them. Someone get the smelling salts. Ah, amazing. Keep on keeping on. All right, we got to pick up those radio folks back from commercial. It's time for some awful tweets that you sent in. It's an evening of suffering. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
Awful tweets, the ones that no one ever deletes. Awful tweets on the Tony Kinnett Show.
On 93 WIPC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast. Time for some awful tweets with Jerry Lopez on the line. Jerry, how are you doing this fine Thursday?
Not too bad. Ready to get into some tweets.
We got sent a lot of them in the last week, and they're really, really horrible. Awful Tweets works like this, folks. You send the worst social media post. Doesn't just have to be from Twitter. You send them in, and then we are forced to read them live on the air, and they're awful. And we start off not with a tweet, believe it or not, Jerry, but with a Facebook post. And I had to look up who this woman was, but it's from a lady named Lauren Young, who, because she has no ability to edit or Photoshop images, she has a picture of a map of Florida, part of it, and then in really horrible handwriting, finger writing, circles West Palm Beach and says, "Dear Iran, he's on the golf course." So, calling for the assassination of the President of the United States. Who is Lauren Young? Oh, she's a Democrat strategist who worked on Hillary Clinton's campaign.
Yeah, big surprise there. I say if we give this tariff wars thing about 2 more weeks, and she probably will have the Chinese flag as her biopic. It's just crazy that they're so unhinged on the left that this is even acceptable. On the right, I don't think anybody ever called for the assassination of President Biden. That should tell you everything you need to know about the coexist party.
Okay, all right, that's fair. That's fair. But I know you've called the left unhinged. I have a hunch the next tweet that we've got lined up is a little more unhinged than this, maybe? From People magazine. Horse girl is half human, half horse, and a full musician. How she went from the farm to Coachella, and then, I love this so much, in parentheses, exclusive. I don't know if I'm going to be able to maintain a straight face much longer, Jared. Please take this.
Just hear me out. I think she has something here, right? So, I like to call when we had to wear masks during COVID season, that was butterface season, right? That's the perfect time. If you have an ugly grill, just cover your face up and you can go out here and meet people. She's found a way to parlay this into a couple more years. So she may be onto something, but I mean, what do they feed her? How serious is she about this thing? I'm really intrigued at this point.
Now look, I know a lot of people took ivermectin. There is a grown woman who has not just like a horse mask, like the weird furry people that's all weird and leather and it's just like a kink. But I mean, she did her eye makeup to make it she's actually like a horse head kind of a thing. And she believes she's a horse. I wish, you know what, bring back bullying. I think just bullying clubs at schools, bring them back. I'm tired of whatever this is, the horsing around.
The sad part is we're supposed to take it serious, and if you don't, then the problem's with you. Come on with the jokes. This is a full-blown weirdo.
I'm picturing this person sitting going, "Excuse me, Senator Sanders." My pronouns are they, them. All right. All right, up next. This is, Mao Ning, who is a spokesperson for the Chinese government. They posted a video because they're bragging. You're trying to bluff off with their economy standing on 2 Shanghai sticks, bragging that they're going to be able to beat the United States in this trade war. And so she posted a video of Mao Zedong bragging about how he was going to win all of these wars and, be a help to humanity. The caption is, "We are Chinese. We are not afraid of provocations. We don't back down." Chairman,
I'm surprised you didn't take it a step further and talk about genocide or the Uyghurs or here's proof, example, see the Uyghurs. Anytime the Chinese say anything is not to be taken seriously, we'll crush your whole economy, but it will cost us a Walmart.
About 5 minutes after this video, the population of China also dropped by about 50 million. So
yeah, they're so old.
Well, no, it wasn't that it was so old. It's that Mao Zedong ordered the ethnic and non-communist cleansing of the nation, and also a bunch of them just starved because he was incompetent. I mean, he had the farming skills of his barber by the look of the photo. I mean, good, sweet Lord.
Right. That's the original George Jefferson haircut.
All right. This next one, though, is a guy on the right. So not only does the left produce the awful tweets, this is from Tariq Nasheed. And he says, if Kyle Rittenhouse was justified in using lethal self-defense, and Daniel Penny, the Marine from the New York subway, was justified in using lethal self-defense, then Carmelo Anthony was justified in using self-defense against alleged bullies who instigated the altercation, correct? Take it, Jerry.
Yeah, he used the word alleged there to save his own tail. These kids weren't bullying anybody. And also, as far as I know, and as far as everything that's come out, this Carmelo Anthony, which is a hilarious name anyway. Parents, if you're listening, don't name your kids after basketball stars. That's ridiculous. But you stab a kid in the chest who's not even armed? That seems a little excessive to me. But knowing and did you also see they've raised almost $1 million for his GoFundMe? This is where we're at in America, man.
I got to tell you, if your first response at a high school track meet, and by the way, I remember in high school, we would get in fights, and you know what we would do? We would just fight. If someone's like, hey, you're in my seat.
Who brings a knife with you? That says enough.
I didn't like that. You know, you don't like that person. Then you just fight. They're on the bleachers. You're both suspended, whatever. And then that's it. Like, you know, you man up and fight. You know, immediately go, you know, like, you know, bring out the Assassin's Creed blade and just, you know, right? And good God, what's wrong with you? I mean, you know.
Also, here's this great photo of him. Like, no, I'm so tired of it.
I swear, whenever it is a situation in which a white person passes away or someone who looks light, because if it's a Hispanic individual who's pale, it's always the ugliest looking photo. It's like horrible. The angle's just awful, terrible, whatever like that. And it again, if it is an Asian person, if it is a Hispanic person, if it's a Native American person, Pacific Islander person, the photo looks terrible. If there was ever a young black man who has committed a murder or something like this, they always find like the graduation or the school photo. I'm just saying, be consistent.
It looks like a Primrose School yearbook photo.
Graduation photos for everybody or the ugly photos for everyone. You're showing the cards a bit here. All right, well, speaking of showing the cards, a particular congresswoman lectured Matt Taibbi, the guy who did the Twitter files, and Representative Kamlager Dove called Matt Taibbi a, quote, sexual serial harasser. And then she quote tweeted this clip of the committee saying, after this, Republicans gave him time to defend himself, and it's telling that he didn't. What do you think about that, Jer?
Yeah, first of all, you don't defend yourself against lies. That's rule number one. When people make lies about you, you don't defend them. When you defend them, you give them a little bit of credibility. But this was a great day for him because he turned around and now he's suing her for $10 million. Like, that's a great day.
Yeah,
they also
defamation
went back and
is
supposedly have interviewed these two. They've interviewed these two ladies, and they said that no, that they were never sexually harassed by him. So, hey, he hit the meal ticket.
Wah, wah, wah. Bad decisions all day long. Well, this last one is a video for you. It's also from China here, and it's pretty special, I would say. It is a Chinese AI video that a lot of people have been putting out of obese Americans like assembling iPhones and Nike shoes and like sewing Nike sweatshirts. And the point that they're trying to make is that America, I guess, would not be able to keep up with the industry from China. Did you see what the place they have the Americans working in, though, look like?
I don't see it. What's it look like, Tony?
It looks like exactly what you would picture a Chinese sweatshop to look like. When you're dunking
so
on
have
some
the suicide nets, that's how much they love their jobs. They got to stop their employees from killing themselves.
If you're trying to dunk on a country and say, you know, you couldn't handle this kind of thing, why would you say, yeah, you would never handle living in our slave sweatshops that look dirty with everyone sad and depressed?
That's the point. That's the point of the whole thing.
I don't know if I'd admit that like they did. All right, Jerry, appreciate your excellent takes, as always, for awful tweets. We'll catch you real soon, man.
Definitely. Have a great rest of your week.
All right, folks. We'll catch the radio crew in a second. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. I've got one more for you fine folks over on the live stream that is just all kinds of awful. So if there's anything that Americans respond to, if there's anything that Americans really believe in, that they think is just really speaks to them, it's being lectured by Europeans, right? I mean, you know, when you wake up in the morning, the first thing that any American does is they think, man, I wonder what some goofball from Belgium thinks of America. So Maria Zakharova from the World Trade Organization, she got out in front of the world and started making statements about U.S. economic policy. And I have to translate because she's speaking, you know, not American. And here's what the very, very brilliant member of the WTO had to say. The White House, new tariffs violate WTO rules, the fundamental rules of the WTO. They have demonstrated that Washington no longer considers itself bound by the norms of international law. Instead of using proper legal mechanisms The U.S. is unilaterally slapping tariffs in a desperate bid to rescue its collapsing economy. Now, just a little come to Jesus moment here. Let's chat. First of all, one of the key reasons that the United States needs to not be a part in any way, shape, or form of the United Nations or the WTO, the World Trade Organization, or the World Health Organization, or any of these supranational organizations, is because these idiots think they can tell the United States what to do. These countries with a GDP the size of a postage stamp, who contribute one $3 bill per year to their own national defense, who mooch off of the U.S. economy, who mooch off of U.S. defense, who the second that Russia starts moving around, freak the bleep out and beg the United States to come in. Remember that, oh, well, France and England, we're going to go in and we're going to put boots on the ground in Ukraine. And then it turned out no one in France or England was willing to do that. They can't even keep radical Islamic terror out of their own countries. They have to ban butter knives and ninja swords in the UK, and yet they think, oh, well, the Americans, they don't follow international law like we do. They said being mowed down by Muslims in SUVs. Oh, they don't understand the posh lifestyle that we Europeans have. First of all, I'm having trouble finding anyone who's not on the far, far, far left who gives a good gosh darn. Canada's tried this for years, hasn't worked. And number two, collapsing U.S. economy, you can say a lot of things about the U.S. economy. The U.S. economy would have to go through 2.5 depressions in a row and hyperinflation to collapse the U.S. economy. Americans at their worst through the Great Recession of the Obama era still could afford most of the basic necessities and then some. The vast majority of Americans in the United States still could afford things that Europeans could not dream of, like air conditioning, during the Great Recession. And according to the Europeans, oh, the U.S. economy is in free fall. Honey, no, I'm afraid not. And to be explicitly clear, moving forward, the EU is currently, although they're trying to say, well, we're going to talk about China and buying Chinese electric vehicles. Oh, yeah. I've seen the Chinese electronics from Amazon. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, nothing says safe and reliable like, turning on your device and you're going, Alvarado of auto detected. Fantastic. That sounds like safe hurtling down the European highways. So wonderful, lovely. I do truly enjoy anytime we see European posturing. It's magical. All right, we're going to be back in just a second for a little bit of extra nonsense. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIPC.
So you've been wondering out there, you've been questioning, well, what is it that is going to keep the left from being one of the two main political parties in this country? What is it out there in that vast, beautiful beyond that is going to prevent, like a giant brick wall, the left from recovering from its current nonsense? Well, it just so happens that it's all the LGBTQ plus 2IA stuff that they normalized and they tried so hard to say was, just everyone's been doing it for years. In fact, every religion, every culture, they all had 47 genders, and the Native Americans were galloping across the plains with, they, thems, and the ancient Hebrew people were pseudo-dumodecahedron, binary, quadriamory, making up all kinds of nonsense. And even after the entire country went, no, they are still going after it. Now, I have unfortunately not seen any of these clips yet because Reeve, our producer, who unfortunately will be leaving us very soon at the end of her internship, has taken it upon herself to scour the web for some of the worst garbage that a fool believes. And Allison, if you might just kind of keep your hand over the dump button, the censor button, because I haven't seen these and I'm a little nervous. You never quite know what you're going to get. I get a description and then I'm not quite sure. All right, so the first one just says, here's how you can support trans surgery. Yeah, everyone knows that's something I deeply support.
I choreographed this dance because I really needed to say this. I'm raising money to cut off my... Woo, you can click on the link in the bio. You can donate here. That's fine too. Help me live my best life. Love you all and thank you.
Well, musical theater is alive and well. That was something. That was something. Yeah. Wow. For those of you who are listening on the radio and didn't see the very not a woman who was wearing mom jeans and the weird like halter top with the makeup that I think was done by a Temu version of the Wicked Witch of the West. Yeah. Thank you very much for that, Reeve. That was... We all are a little worse off for that particular one. This next one, I can't read this description on the air. It's a dude hunting for something. Again, not great.
Here are some reasons why you should be dating trans women.
Okay. There are memes in which people have, like, drawn the chin in. Producer Nick, you know, like the pictures of Michael Jackson late in his life? Like, hee. Like, yeah, those are the ones I'm talking about. Yeah. Take that and then run that through Party City. And then take a bit of Cher, like about 4 concert tours after the expiration date. That's what this person looks like. Oh, and also, they took their sock drawer and shoved them into a sweater that is missing a button and most of the fabric. Sorry, Adam's Apple Man. Here with the caption, why you should consider dating trans women.
We don't have any periods, which means no hormonal moments when we're super moody.
Hang on a second. No period? Then why do you need tampons in the boys' bathroom? Hang on a second here. Also, no hormones. I thought the hormones were like half of the thing. And I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you, ma'am.
And no need to have gaps in the month when we don't get naughty. Also, that means no pregnancy scares, which is great. Which also means no need to use protection, if you know what I mean. We more than likely...
What else would you mean? What else would you mean? I mean, I'm scarred for life, for sure. Absolutely. But, like, what else would you mean?
Likely have a few similar interests, as we are still in touch with our masculine side, which will never go away.
Dude, you're just gay. Just come to terms with it. You're gay. I mean, you know, that's the way you want to live your life, fine. But, you know, going, I'm you know, still a little masculine. Yeah, we can tell. The Adam's apple and the awkward bulge gave it away there. Oh, the left is fine, boys and girls. And this last one says women's restroom.
I am a woman, and I use the women's restroom.
Okay, in Men in Black, like the really like gross looking guy that had the alien, like was like wearing like the alien skin. That's them. Or like the reject Walmart greeter. Oh, there's another one. It just picture guy who with shorter hair would be telling you you're gonna have some trouble if you don't pay us next month. Who they call like Giovanni Pepperoni Gastali. Long green hair and a shirt that was purchased from Elder Beerman.
And there ain't a damn thing you or Trump or your Republican party's going to do about it.
You're gonna use the girls' Yeah, they're not no predators, guys. That's no issues there. As long as the left continues to cling to this desperately, as they very clearly do, there's not going to be anything at all that party can do with momentum. I mean, the Republicans are amazing at snatching victory from the jaws of defeat. Fantastic stuff. We do have another one here, and I want to make sure that I get this loaded in correctly. This was a bit of a last-minute entry here. I cannot play one particular clip that I wanted to play because, Allison, there's no way that I can put you through the abject suffering of how many times in like 30 seconds this guy drops the F-bomb. He's very, 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 very grumpy. But there is one more story, I guess, of Tulsi Gabbard is apparently sending agents around to look for additional JFK files over in warehouses. Why? I don't think that that's really what we should be focusing on. That's just another little extra news clip at the end of the day. We do have to cut the radio crew loose because this is, in fact, the end of the FCC clock. We'll see you tomorrow for an end of week special. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. All right, live stream crew. This last one's from me, and it's from Russell Brand, who has, come out and said some right-wing things a little bit in the last couple of months, and he converted to Christianity. He said, he accepted Christ as his savior, and if that's true, if he did that, that's great. That's fantastic. I'm really, really glad to hear that. The problem is he, like a lot of converts who have a lot of influence going in. So people who are famous, people who are wealthy beforehand, and they make a big decision in their life, immediately they become the expert, and they decide they're going to come out and they're going to tell everyone how it is. And the problem is that if you don't know what you're talking about, what's the right word for this? It's just wrong. So here's Russell Brand talking a little bit about why America and his reasoning for why America, I realize America is not a religion, but his argument for why America needs to have the LGBTQ plus 2IA conversation is it's very, 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 very off. So here's Russell Brand telling you how he thinks it is.
The United States of America, I reckon the one thing you lot have to start having a sort of pretty open conversation about is how you are going to accommodate this variety of perspectives. It can't be with a continual amplification of hate and the
Okay. Again, starting out strong, nothing better than a European lecturing Americans on what it is that they need to do. So you need to accommodate a variety of perspectives and stop amplifying the hate. Okay?
That the other side just disappears. So if you are a nativist, patriot, Christian, lover of America and a pro-Trump person, then I guess partly what you could do is figure out, well, how can we accommodate the LGBTQ plus folks and people that care a great deal about trans rights? Because I know that Jesus would care about that. Jesus does care about that. Jesus loves all of us, forgives all of us, died for all of us, wants all of us redeemed. There is no pathway through this mess via the culture. Are you getting that now? Because I really have got it. I have received that message.
Okay, couple of things here. So when you frame the argument around as Christians, which a lot of Americans are not, and then you say this is what Jesus would do, now you are bringing it into theology. So if you're going to make an argument like on an objective stance, hey, you need to do this because, it's what a common decent thing to do is or whatever. Okay, I hear you. Maybe it's a good argument, maybe it's a bad argument. But when you bring in the name of Jesus Christ, King of Kings and Lord of Lords, into the conversation and you address Christians directly, we're going to have a talk about it. So a couple of things here. Number one, correct. Jesus Christ did in fact die for all. Absolutely. And then after taking upon himself the sins of mankind, was buried, and then, as we are going to celebrate in a few days, rose from the grave 3 days later, conquered sin and death, and then ascended into heaven after spending a short time on earth. That is true. Christ died for all sins. There is not one person, Not one sin that Christ did not die for. No matter the sin, no matter the person, the forgiveness, the love, and the compassion of Christ is unlimited. And it is explicitly for, God sent not his son to condemn the world, and then continues on, but to save it, to bring about the redemption, to bring about the remission, the wiping away of sins. Okay, that there. Christ does not, and has not, and will not condone sin. In the Gospels, there is an account of Christ going to a well. Because he's thirsty, he tells the disciples to go on to town. And at this well, he's thirsty, he's tired, it's warm, it's dead noon, right in the middle of the day. He sees a woman who is at the well drawing water. Very unusual for a lady to be at the well this time of day. The women in that culture at that time, they would go out in the morning to the well before the sun was hot, and they would draw the water for the day. And so there's this lady alone. Christ comes up and says, "Hey, would you mind getting me a drink of water, please?" And the lady, because he's not carrying around a bucket. And the lady's like, "Whoa, why are you talking to me? You guys don't usually, talk to us." And Christ said, "Well, I'm here on a hot day. You have a bucket. Would you mind, drawing, a bucket of water?" And the conversation ensues. And at one point she says, "I'm my husband." He says, "Hey, you should go get your husband and bring him here. We can all sit down and talk together about your faith, about salvation, about the fulfillment of prophecy, things like that." And the lady looks at Christ and says, "I don't have a husband." And Jesus says, "Yeah, you're right. You don't. You've had 5. And the person that you're living with is not your husband." And she's like, "I think you're a prophet." And Christ, again, in a sense, has a conversation with her. And at the end of this conversation, he says, "Go and sin no more." Making the case you are currently living in sin. You are living with an individual outside of marriage. You are sleeping with this person outside of marriage. That is not a thing. Marriage, as the Bible defines it, from the very beginning to the very end, is between one man and one woman. The language is gendered. According to the Christian faith, that is the specific scriptural definition of marriage. There is no other interpretation that is at all possible. In fact, throughout the Old Testament and the New Testament, Paul, Peter, and the rest of the writers of the New Testament make it explicitly clear that sex outside of marriage is in fact a sin. According to the Christian faith, that's the rule. And so the idea that maybe we just, it's not my business, it's not hurting me, so, maybe we just, accommodate and bring everybody, big group hug. There's a very big difference from saying, "Hey, you're a person who's making life choices. You should repent of that sin and you should seek Christ instead." There is no reason, that you should be kicking people out of churches who come to find Christ. But there's a difference between bringing people in to hear the gospel and telling them that Christ died for their sins and has forgiven them of their sins, and then saying on the complete flip side, what you are doing is okay and is good and is fine because after all, I'm a person of love and compassion and that means accepting everything. No, that's not what that means. Affirmation is not commanded because you don't affirm bad choices. That's not helping people. And again, if you're making the Christian argument to the Christian faith from the Bible, what would Jesus do? Jesus never was like, he's like, he ate with publicans and sinners. Publicans being like tax collectors. Yes, he did. He never said, "Hey, keep doing what you're doing." It was go and sin no more. Repent. The point that Christ was making when he preached to sinners was not that sinners, what they are doing is fine and shouldn't be judged. The whole "judge not lest ye be judged" was just taken completely out of context. It means do not cast eternal judgment on a person. Basically do not condemn them to hell or boost them to heaven. You don't have a right to judge whether or not someone is worthy of salvation, lest God question whether you are worthy of salvation. Hot take, not a single one of us are worthy of salvation at all. For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. That's what Scripture says explicitly. So, based on that argument together, the idea that Americans and Christians need to assimilate every aspect of society because otherwise that is hate is wrong. It's not true. It's not. And saying so is not hate. I do not believe in the idea of governments deciding what does and does not constitute a marriage. I don't think the state should be involved at all with marriage, up to and including the idea that married people get a tax break. I think that's silly. The government should not be encouraging or discouraging certain types of life. The government kind of sucks when it comes to making decisions. That's kind of its thing. Marriage has and will forever be a spiritual institution. It's the binding of two souls. For this cause shall a man leave his mother and father and cleave unto his wife, and they two shall be one flesh. That is the Christian argument. Now, we can talk about the anthropological argument, the psychological argument, the core fundamentals of society and the socioeconomics of it another time. Russell made the Christian argument. I am responding from the Christian argument. Just here at the end and a little bit of the bonus section here. But it is a foolish thing to believe that really love and compassion means, because you have this ambiguous idea that like Jesus was like love, man. He just came in and was like, love everybody, like just love everyone, man. Just turn the other cheek and like walk with the, No. Adam and Eve were no longer allowed to walk side by side with God when they had sin in their heart. They hid from God. When at the time Saul was walking to Damascus, Christ blinded him with light. Paul, why persecutest thou me? Or Saul, why persecutest thou me? And then after Saul repented, he was given the new name Paul, and then he walked with the Lord. The concept of holding on to sin, by the way, this goes anywhere. And again, you'll notice that the argument that I made against the LGBTQ plus 2IA thing had to do with sex outside of marriage, a relationship outside of the marriage institution between one man and one woman. And for the record, none of that factors into hate at all. Case in point, Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, is gay. I don't know if you knew that. He doesn't make a huge deal about it. The idea that Scott Bessent is one of my top 3 members of the administration. I really like Marco Rubio. I really like Scott Bessent. And I also like Vance as a vice president. I think when he's on it, he is on it, and there's like nobody else who can articulate things the way that he does. Those are 3 people that I really like in the administration. The idea that if you don't agree with someone's life choices, you say, well, I don't agree with the manner of Trump's divorces or the way that Elon Musk is not raising his children. I don't like how certain individuals have done certain things. Absolutely not. None of my political conversations require me to affirm. There are friends of mine that I've had on the show who are gay. Do I agree with their life choices? No, I have a severe theological disagreement with that. I'm never going to tell them that your idea of what you think is a marriage is blessed. I'm not going to tell them that. Blessed meaning blessed from God, God's anointment and blessing, the uniting of one flesh in marriage. I don't think so. But we're talking about the Christian argument of what I need to affirm and accept and inculcate into my society. It has nothing to do with whether an individual has the freedom or not to do things. I don't think that you should have the freedom to castrate, whether chemically or physically, a child. That has to do with active harm towards an individual. I don't think the state should be blessing or canceling marriages of any kind at any time. I think that's a very gross thing. We're finding this out, by the way, now with polyamory. Whether the people who are in these polycules, I'm in a relationship with a lot of people. What does the government do then? We say, now marriage is between just 2 people. Why? Upon what basis do you make the claim that marriage is between 2 people? You say, a historical precedent. You want to talk historical precedent? We're going to get into a different conversation. But the theological argument here, again, just because in this particular instance, we're talking about the concept of how a Christian should or should not respond to the LGBTQ plus 2IA community. You can be friendly and nice, kind to someone and share with them the gospel without saying you are perfect the way you are, because Disney is not theology. It's a self-worshiping philosophy. It's the idea that I'm perfect, I'm fine, I'm wonderful, I don't need to change. It's everyone else who's wrong. It's foolish no matter what method it takes. And the same goes for larceny, for gluttony, for pride, for lying, whatever. And so with that in mind there at the end of the show, thank you very much for tuning in this evening. We'll be back tomorrow with another little bit of the Tony Kinnett cast. Like and subscribe if you like the show. If you don't like the show, you do what you can. Thanks very much for tuning in. This has been the Tony Kinnett Cast here on The Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC. Take care.